I am Anaya Braveboy, incoming senior, and I am the president of the Black African Coalition.
I'm Cornelius Foxworth, the Vice President of Black African Coalition, and I'm a rising senior.
My name is Caitlin Kubley. I'm going to be the treasurer for the Black African Coalition this year, and I'm also going to be a junior.
My name is Divine Lee. I am a rising junior, and I am the community liaison of the Black African Coalition.
My name is Zenobia Aiden. I'm a rising junior, and I am the civic engagement chair for the Black African Coalition.
My name is Taylor Jackson. I am a rising junior, and I'm the secretary for the Black African Coalition.
My name is Rachel Porche, and I'm the public relations chair for the Black African Coalition.
And I'm Wardell Blackwell. I'm the director of student cultural engagement located on the third floor of the Tempe campus, Memorial Union. I'm also the advisor for the Black African Coalition.
Thank you all so much for coming out to the show. I really want to start off with kind of the first question, which is for those who aren't familiar and for those who are tuning in, would you be able to kind of explain the backstory and kind of what this current movement stands for and why it's so significant?
Okay, so the Black Lives Matter movement began with the uproar of police brutality that the Black community was facing. However, it has branched out to not only just police brutality, but racism and other forms of social injustices that the Black community is facing.
Yeah, the Black Lives Matter movement is an anti-racist movement that was stemmed from the murdering of Trayvon Martin, who was an unarmed Black boy who was shot and killed in Florida. The Black Lives Matter movement was started by 3 women, one of them being Trayvon Martin's mother. And I think that the movement has kind of branched out into different stems of different communities and what those communities need. And I think that that's why the Black Lives Matter movement is so unique is, like Anaya said, it stems from police brutality and the issues that Black folks in America face with police brutality, but the kind of organizations of Black Lives Matter and individual Black communities really focus on what those specific communities need. And I think that's why it's so unique in the sense that there's different communities fighting for different things.
I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement was really an outcry for the Black community in the United States that has evolved into something that is developed and represents not only for police brutality, but like Anaya had mentioned, but for other in social injustice that the Black community experiences.
And so then going a little bit into this as well, what do these current protests and the current movement mean to you all, individually or as a collective?
I feel as if the protests are really just people being fed up with, not really being able to voice their opinions or, not being able to have those conversations. So the protests have really just been a way for the Black community and our allies to have their voices heard on a public platform where no one can, look away or, dismiss what's going on. It's really just blunt and in your face, like, what's up? We're here. We're fed up, and something needs to be done about it.
Yeah, just going off of that, I guess it would just be, to me, that the protests just stemmed from a place of frustration, just that kind of enough is enough type feeling. Like, obviously, a lot of us will talk about it, we'll post it, whatever the case may be, but it just seemed like nothing was really bringing the attention to it that we wanted it to. And through the protests, it just seems that our community has been able to really just grab onto our voice and just let everyone know that this racism is still here in every way, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. We're done with that.
As a girl growing up in the South, I know that I experienced where the mistreatment of the Black community has become a social norm. And so I feel like the protest represents where the Black community stands together and all with an agreeing idea that they understand that this mistreatment is not right and that it should change, and that they all agree that they want to do something about it. So the protest is just, I feel like was mentioned before, a public platform where everyone is saying that we basically had enough and we want changes to be made.
Yeah, adding on to Divine's last point, I think the protests overall, like, I think the main goal is to see actual change occur within our country. It's not just about one person. There's countless names that are hashtags, and there's countless names that aren't even hashtags because we don't know about them. I think the biggest point that's trying to be made with this is that police brutality against Black people and other people of color is real, and it's apparent in this country. And there's something that needs to be done about it. And it's just calling for that change to occur and for everybody to stand up for it. So.
What's really interesting about the protests now is that like a lot of like individuals in the Black community have been fighting and speaking up like their whole lives because it's just a reality that we deal with. And we've been trying to have those conversations. But I think right now, George Floyd and just all the police brutality incidents that's happened in like the past few months, it's very hard to ignore, especially like on social media, in the news, because everyone's at home, they're quarantined, and they're seeing it. And so I think it was just like a catalyst to all these protests, and we're finally getting not just Black people are fed up, but other people of color, white people as well. Like we're all just trying to say something, and at this point, like we refuse to be ignored.
So as one of the ASU coalitions, how do you feel about the support from the university or from the students? Do you feel like it's been enough over the last X amount of time?
I'll start first. I definitely feel like the support has not been there. It's gotten better, to say the least. And I would say it's gotten better in a minimal way over the past week or 2 weeks. As far as President Crow's statement, I think a lot of the Black community was disappointed, to say the very least. Angry, frustrated, upset. There was just so many emotions because in his statement, not one time did he mention Black people, African Americans. He never mentioned racism, white privilege, police brutality. Like none of those key words about what's going on were mentioned in that statement. And that was extremely concerning. And it's sad to say that I wish the statement would have never been released, because then I could be like, well, maybe like, now I just know that it's a way of him releasing a statement to just say he released a statement. And it's very hard. But as far as like other coalitions go, and other organizations on campus, I feel like they're starting to get it. Is it all the way there? No, but I feel like they're trying to understand. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we're progressing towards the space of understanding our struggles. So.
To add on to that, I feel as if this past week pretty much exposed the lack of education that a lot of the non-Black community had on behalf of the issues that we face every day. And it's sad that it had to take a series of killings and murders for people to realize like, oh, damn, there really is police brutality. And, you know, the Black community is still facing racism, you know, even though it's never disappeared or it's never been gone. So I feel as if ASU should have done a lot better with the resources that they've been given to Black students and the conversations that they should have been given to Black students. The BAC has been working its butt off to pretty much give students those platforms and to help mend those relationships. Same thing as Cornelia said, he said it nicely. You know, President Crow, he should have just not released that statement, and then, you know, maybe things would be a little bit better. But, you know, that statement kind of upset, you know, Black students at ASU because it didn't really reference us and it didn't really provide a way of support or, you know, moving forward, this is how ASU is going to help support minorities and, you know, the Black community. We still feel singled out and like we're in this alone. So we're still going to be the big family and community that we are, and we're going to continue to grow from it.
I'm going to be as nice as possible. I just feel like the support was not genuine. I feel like it was more like a follow the leader. Like one person made a post and the next person made a post, but I don't feel like they really truly understand and grasp the concept of what we're really going through. And I feel like that ASU, the non-Black ASU community can do way more. And I can't speak on much since we aren't in school. So hopefully when fall comes around, we see a different tune and a change among the non-Black ASU community, and see more collaboration, more connections, try to understand, try to learn and see what the Black students or even college students, non-Black students, all what they go through, and have a connection and really a support system for one another. Everyone matters, but at this moment, the Black community is struggling with emotional turmoil within themselves. And so this is their chance to really show they support their community and their students. And right now, they're kind of missing it, but hopefully I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt for fall, and that they will learn to do more.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that real quick, the best way I can describe the way that I feel that it's been handled by the university, it just felt like almost like they tried to put a Band-Aid on something that needed stitches, that needs surgery, that needs to complete in total and utter reconstruction. You can't slap a Band-Aid on that because you're bleeding and it's just a hot mess. We need a full 180 flip a script, turn this all around. And from the statement, and there are a lot of groups that have been super supportive and understanding, but I think that the university has lacked empathy, not sympathy, but like literally putting themselves in like our shoes to fully understand. Because if they had done that, then they would have specifically mentioned that what's going on right now is affecting African and African American students, and so on and so forth. So that's how I was feeling.
And so I had a follow-up question, and I apologize. It wasn't something that I sent forward earlier, but what is the experience like as a Black student at ASU? I think it's definitely a loaded question, and I'm sorry that it came without preparation, but I'm just curious. I don't know what it's like, and I think a lot of people would like to know.
I feel like it's different for every student, because not all Black people are the same. My experience was probably maybe a lot different from maybe Anaya's experience or Divine's experience, because we all have different backgrounds and different experiences, walk, talk, act differently. So, even though like our skin might look the same or whatnot, we're all Black, the experiences itself, I just feel like really differ.
Yeah, I can say my experience as a Black woman I don't want to say it's been difficult, but, as a person that has lived middle class my whole life, both my parents were in the military. However, in a classroom with all white students, I feel as if I have to compete, or I have to justify myself, I have to make sure that people understand that, I can meet the state's requirements, and I can test above the little minimum grade average that I need. Or going into college, it was fairly, I don't want to say it was difficult, because ASU had such a warming Black community, but I have never had a class with Black students, so I always feel like the odd one out, or I don't feel as if my professor wants to build that relationship. I feel as if I have to go the extra mile. Or if I apply for a position that's not within the Black community, I feel as if I have to have some exquisite resume, or I have to have some great experience to push, to put me apart. Yeah. So that's my experience.
Like Caitlin said, everyone has different experiences. Like I said, I grew up in the South. It is a different time, but honestly, it's still segregated. Let's be real. It is. So I had that experience, as well as my family's being Jamaican, and my family, and my mom being from New York. That's a whole nother experience. I know that going to college and being pushed outside my comfort zone was one of the biggest changes I've ever experienced. I felt like throughout my life, I had to walk on my tippy toes. I had to analyze every situation in my life from a point of view where I do not want to seem angry or seem like a stereotype. So I have to, it's almost like you're always proving yourself to strangers and always having to prove yourself to people that don't know you and prove to them that you are not a stereotype, you are not a statistics, you are not this. I was lucky enough to go to a prestigious middle school and high school. I went to boarding school. A lot of people do not know that about me. I traveled the world. But when people look at me and they see that I like colored hair and all that type of stuff, the first thing that they think of is I'm ghetto, I'm ratchet. So that standpoint of me being a stereotype and me being a statistics is my biggest fear, that I try to make sure that no one thinks of me that way. And I go 3 times as hard, try to be 3 times as better, just to make sure that I am just equivalent to the other students that are not the same complexion as me or not the same ethnicity as me.
I was just, the only thing I have to add is Caitlin's absolutely right. Like, there is really no collective experience of Black students going to PWIs, which are predominantly white institutions. Piggybacking off of what Divine said, I grew up somewhere very liberal, very racially diverse. And for me personally, moving to Arizona from Chicago, as someone that would consider myself an activist or someone that was very active in my community and organizing, I felt like, which was a privilege from where I grew up, because it was kind of just a norm and the exception that if you see something wrong, like, you wanted to organize. But then moving to Arizona and not really understanding the political dynamics of Arizona and things like that, and just being very taken aback of the things that my white counterparts were comfortable saying around me, or the way that I would have to act in Arizona versus my hometown. And also just piggybacking off of what Divine said about like having to act a certain way in classrooms, which I don't think a lot of people really, I think people say they understand, but I don't think they really understand like the true deep meaning of that, and the fact that we learn to turn away from like respectability politics, but at the end of the day, it's like what we have to do for survival. So like Divine was saying, like, she tries to stray away from the stereotypes of being considered a ghetto Black woman, but I think the main issue is that we don't create space, or Arizona State University does not create space for Black women who are from the ghetto to flourish in classrooms and flourish in an academic environment. And I think that that's something that it's really hard to grapple with, of like, do I really want to go off in class right now and like show this side of me to my white classmates? Like, do I want to do this right now? Is it the time or the place? Like, in front of these people, like, do I want to do this, or should I bite my tongue and then wait for me to go to a BAC meeting and then maybe I can tell my peers how I really feel there? And I think that that struggle between like your two selves is really hard to navigate, because there are times I'm in a class where I'm like, I cannot believe he just said that, or I cannot believe she just said that and was comfortable saying that to like me in front of my face. And then you also get really upset with yourself because you don't say anything, or because I don't say anything. And then it's that like internalizing of like, well, I didn't say anything, so like, is it really their fault? Like, how am I going to learn when it shouldn't be my job to have to teach people cultural competence, or like what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to say around, or not even around their Black classmates, just like point blank period. Like, some things are just very inappropriate to say. And I think that ASU kind of fosters a culture where that stuff is tolerated, and then it puts the burden on Black students to have to, if they want to, educate their peers, when I just think that that should be a part of the community standards at ASU in general. And it shouldn't, I think, for too long, while BAC is a very powerful organization on campus, we kind of bear the burden of issues of racism and all issues that involve Black people on campus, when I wish we went to a school that, instead of contacting us and be like, hey, y'all, can you read this? Like, is this culturally okay to say? Like, they would just know, because what we know is what we know because we've had to know it growing up, like, Black in America. And I think it's the job of the university to educate themselves without having to burden their Black students to put out this information?
For me, as a Black male, my experience at ASU is definitely unique. It's constantly a battle of, like Zenobia said, just trying to figure out how do I put it? Dealing with certain microaggressions each and every day, it's hard to decide which ones you're going to address and which ones you're not going to address. It's a constant battle of being like, okay, can I actually say or react the way most people would react to this? Or do I need to not do that because of the way everyone else in this area is going to view me? And like, for example, there was a situation with my roommate and he had hacked into my iCloud account. My iCloud, not my iPhone, not my email, my iCloud account. You know how iCloud is. You have like everything in there. And so I had to decide, am I going to go in here and get loud and actually like beat his ass, or am I just going to like go talk to the CD and move rooms and just be the bigger person about it? And I chose the bigger person about it because had I just started wailing on him in my room and everybody here screaming, oh, it looks like, oh, the Black guy is being his white roommate. That's the way it would have appeared. And it's just constantly battling like the way people view you, I think. And it's us being aware of it. And we shouldn't have to be aware of it, but we are. It was unfortunate, like freshman year when I was on campus, I would go to the Hayden Library, study super late, doing homework, at least until like 2 or 3 in the morning. And like by that time I'm tired, you know, like once you're tired, your eyes are red. I go back to my dorm at Manzi and they're like, are you high? Like that's what the CAs asked me. I'm like, no, like do you not see this backpack on me? Do you not see like it's in the middle of the week, like I don't even smell like weed. Like I bet you need me to pull out my laptop to show you everything I've done. Like it's those type of things. And I think that sometimes what people don't realize is like that issue, I can't speak for everybody. I definitely can't. But a lot of us have to be are conscious of the way white people and other minorities, in fact, look at us on campus. We often feel like we have to filter ourselves when we're not with people who look like us because we're worried about the way they'll perceive us or others like us. And we don't want to become, quote unquote, that stereotype that is so often portrayed. So
I know that I feel like, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but being a Black person is living with the fear that no other person or no other ethnicity has to live with, really. I shouldn't have to worry about Cornelius walking at night and a police stopping him. I shouldn't have to have a talk with my mother on how I have to be extra polite and conscious about how I talk to a policeman, even if I didn't do anything wrong. Keyword, even if I did not do anything wrong. I should not have to worry about a white person yelling at me, but not being able to yell back at them so I don't seem like the angry Black person. This fear that I feel like every Black person experiences, whether it's not directly police brutality, but it's still something that's in the back of their mind, that what if moment instills fear in the Black community, because you don't know if that could have been your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, your cousin, your uncle, your aunt. And you cannot relate to that fear that is instilled in a Black family, the Black community. And that's why I feel like living as a Black person is a burden almost in the United States, because they don't understand, they don't comprehend, and they think that everybody's treated equally. But that is a dream that everyone needs to wake up from.
RJ, can I share a 30-year-old story real quick?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
So I went to California Baptist. It was college then, it's university now. So in one of my classes, by the way, this is probably 10 weeks into the semester. So these people have seen me, know me, whatever else. So we had a group project we had to do. So it was basically, I think it was 5 of us. 2 white guys, an Asian dude, myself, 3 white guys, an Asian dude, and myself. And so we had to do a group presentation, and there was no limitations on what we could do. We could do whatever we wanted. So as opposed to doing the regular PowerPoint, because PowerPoint was brand new at the time. So as opposed to doing a PowerPoint presentation, we did a talk show. And it was a class talking about supply and demand and all those. It was a management class talking about supply and demand, just a regular general business class, upper division. So we did a talk show where we had some affluent people on one side, and then we had some Me and the Asian dude played gangsters on the other side because we were showing that we live different. This is how we live. This is made up, by the way. We wrote a script for this. So as we're doing it and we're getting through the presentation, the talk show host asks for questions. And there's people in that class that have been there for 10 weeks that were talking to me and this Asian dude like we were actual thugs. Like, how is it that you can rip off people's houses and do all this? I mean, we had the garb and everything else. I had been in this class for 10 weeks and they had seen me every day. And from that moment on, for the last 5 or 6 weeks, he and I were treated different by those members that were actually grilling us like we were really committing crimes and doing those things. It was just the juxtaposition was just complete. They really, I don't know, maybe I should have went into acting. I don't think so. We just wanted to try to get the A on the thing. And the ironic part is that it was so convincing to our instructor that we got A's on it. But now these people are looking at me as if I'm about to break into their house and hit them over the head with a baseball bat. Now, mind you, this is like 1992. So as you can see from some of my younger folks that are talking right now, as much as things change, some things stay the same.
And I really appreciate you guys telling me about and talking about those personal experiences. And again, sorry that I didn't send that earlier, but thank you. So again, going back to the current movement that we've seen over the last few weeks, what would you say to the people that are focusing more so on the looting and the rioting than the message of the movement itself?
The rioting and looting, the videos that I've seen have not even been the organizers or the people at the protests or not even a part of the Black community. And I'm not trying to put it on a race because there are some, some people from our community that's doing some things. But I feel as if it first started as we need to get your attention. Now, so they started putting things on fire. They started to, burn police cars and, break a lot of things as a way for people to take them serious, but again, to get their attention and for people to understand that we're fed up. This is something that we're not going to accept going into 2021 and so on and so forth. As for it now, I feel as if people are starting to pair them together when they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. The Black Lives Matter movement has its own purpose and its own mission that has nothing to do with the rioting and the looting. And I just feel as if people are now focusing on that and not really focusing on the purpose behind the movement. So, we just have to continue to protest and continue to get their attention in order for systematic change to happen.
Me personally, I feel like we're damned if we do, we damned if we don't. Whether we were peaceful, the police were still going to be aggressive and beat us up. Whether we do loot, they're going to say we're angry or we're trying to steal. So I feel like they're taking away from the actual purpose. If we want to look back at it, looting, I don't think it's that serious. These companies has insurance for millions. They're probably going to get twice as much money for the value of the things that were taken. They're going to get paid regardless. So they're not really losing anything. I feel like they are downplaying the protests, the purpose, the real reason why we're doing this, because the simple fact of somebody rioting, you have to understand that people are angry. That is an honest reaction. You are angry. You are sitting here getting tear gassed. You're sitting here and these policemen are hitting people with metal weapons, pushing them, treating them inhumane. And it's okay that we still sit there peacefully, that honestly, every human has a right to a reaction. So I should not feel comfortable getting beat on, hit on by another man just because he went through 6 weeks of training and has a gun and a badge. No, I'm a human being. He is a human being. He should not be treating me like this. No human being should be treating another human being like they are beneath them. So the rioting, the looting, yes, is bad, but it's not that serious. These people will get their money back. They have insurance, and people are rioting because they're angry. They have a reason to riot. They have a reason to be mad. They have a reason to be outroaring about the mistreatment among their community.
What I would say to those who are focusing more on the looting and not the protesting is first, like how everyone else kind of said, educate yourself. Educate yourself on who is actually partaking in the looting. Yes, there are Black people that are looting, but if you really do your research and sit down Doesn't take that long to type up a couple things. Even watching the news, you could actually see that there's a lot of white people and other races that are doing the looting. So taking the time to educate yourself about that and taking your time to educate yourself about what the protest is, like just putting on some, I hate to say what are those, getting some tunnel vision, putting,
Blinders.
Oh, yeah, blinders. You can't see nothing besides, well, okay, and then taking the time to be like, okay, what is this protest actually about, and learning about the protest. So education. And then two, again, empathizing with our community. If you are not a part of our community, to say, wow, that is an awful way to treat a group of people. Why on earth would people ever think this was okay? Why on earth would I ever think that this was okay? Because I feel like when there's a lack of empathy, it's one thing to sympathize with people. Dang, I feel really bad for them. Like, that really sucks. But when you empathize with someone and you sit there and just sit and think, dang, that could be me. I'm not, maybe if I was a white woman and, if I wasn't Black or whatever, and for me to just really sit down and think, like, if this was me, what would I be doing in this situation? So that's what I would say to people who are just focusing on the looting as opposed to the actual protests.
I would also encourage people to educate themselves on their U.S. history and the things that rioting and looting have accomplished in U.S. history. And the fact that the reason why America is America and it is a country is because of a history of violence and looting and rioting. So I think that there is I'm not going to say that the rioting and looting is bad. And I'm not going to say that peaceful protests are bad or good, because it's not black and white. Like, some people riot because their favorite sports team wins. Some people riot because their favorite sport team loses. Some people riot because they've been oppressed for 400 years and they can't take it anymore. And there's a buildup of frustration and anger. So I think a lot of people have been looking for activists and organizers to publicly condemn Black. And I want to emphasize the fact that, like, I will condemn people taking advantage of the movement happening right now and committing acts of violence, because they are taking away from the true message of this movement. But I will never publicly condemn Black folks for rioting and looting, just because I can openly and honestly say I don't think a lot of issues involving civil rights or anything has started from peaceful protesting. And I say that during Pride Month. Right now, Stonewall. I don't think that we can celebrate a lot of our basic rights as minorities and of oppressed people without at least acknowledging what rioting and looting, especially in this country, have accomplished. And for the people that are only focusing on rioting and looting right now, I would just encourage them to really think about why they love this country so much and why they are so patriotic to be in a country that screams for people's freedoms, and really educate themselves on how this country even came to be. Because I don't think it's fair for you to say that looting is not a valid way of protesting a system of oppression when it just educate. I think Caitlin hit it on the nail. Just really educate yourself on empathy, on why you're so more upset about Target getting looted when Target released a statement saying that they don't care and human beings matter more than materialistic things, and why you're focusing so much on materialistic things and you're putting more value on those things than life.
One thing I want to add on to what Zenobia is saying, her last point, is that why are people so focused on the looting and not the actual issue? They're so loud about, oh my gosh, they're rioting, they're looting, but why aren't they so loud about Black people being killed senselessly in the streets? I just don't understand that. I think the biggest issue is that people like to see what they want to see, and they don't want to recognize all the ugly and all of it. They want to just see the parts that they're comfortable addressing. And what I challenge people to do is, if you think the rioting and looting is bad now, if things do not get better in the next 2 months, 3 months, what ends up the rioting and looting, and that's going to be the least of your problems. It really is. And so I encourage people to, like everyone said, educate yourselves on the history of the United States and try to understand why people are doing what they're doing, and then address the stuff that really needs to be addressed. It's like everyone said, Target can be replaced. It's a Target. You can go to Walmart instead. There are multiple options. Like that's my main point, and I think
yeah, I agree with everything everyone said. I think that it's hard for me to understand why people are so angry and upset about rioting and looting, but not having the same energy about people's lives being lost. Like, kind of impossible for me to understand, because it's like I could walk on the street and then I could be killed, but like all those material things, they could be replaced so easily. Like a life, like other people have said, lives cannot be replaced. I just think if you're going to choose to be angry about something, or choose to focus your energy on something, focus it on the lives of people being lost. Like, I'm just struggling to understand how you're so angry about that.
What are the next steps for anyone that's listening? How can they make a positive impact in their community? How can they support the ASU community? What can they do after listening to this episode?
Okay, I guess I'm going to start again. So the first thing that they can do is educate themselves. Find out how you can get involved in the movement, whether that's one, educating yourself, two, being in those protests, going to those council meetings, emailing different elected officials, helping with policy change, and just doing the work. The Black Lives Matter movement is not just a hashtag or I went to a protest and I'm posting my picture. It's none of that. It's none of just putting the fist up. It's actually making change, creating change. How are you ending systematic oppression, racism, social injustices, police brutality, So I just feel as if right now, the non-Black community just simply needs to sympathize and, like I kept saying, empathize with the Black community and realize that this is years and not even just like 10, 20 years. This is generations of us dealing with the same stuff, like my great grandmother should not see her grandkids going through the same thing she marched for, it's sad, honestly. So I just feel as if all states and communities need to realize, there's work to be done and you can no longer just turn a blind eye to it. As for ASU, I feel as if they need to understand that Black Lives Matter. And I mean that in the most simplistic way possible, because the statements that have been released, they're okay. But I mean, stuff could have been done better. It shouldn't have taken this much of, us dealing with racism and police brutality and things like that for them to finally reach out to us. I just feel right now I don't want to say fake love, but it's like, it's a little too late for you to finally want to meet with us and have these conversations with us. Yes, we're thankful that you're finally, acknowledging the situation, but at the same time, it's like, isn't the first death that we've dealt with at the hands of a police officer. This is 10 years later or 20, 30 years later because of Sandra Bland and things like that. So that's my thoughts. I said a lot, but
add on. So the first step number one, is self-reflection. I need non-Black students who love Black culture but has yet to help a Black person self-reflect. If they've ever been in a situation where they said the N-word, heard their friends say the N-word, ever clutched their purse around a Black person because they think they're going to rob them, anything, touch a Black girl's hair, anything that is not okay, they need to self-reflect and realize what they have done wrong, where they could have educated themselves. Now, everybody can't be an activist, so I understand you might not feel comfortable being in a protest or in a movement, but look at yourself. Look at situations in your everyday life where you could have stopped it. I'm going to take what Anaya said. Fake love. I actually do think it's fake love because these non-Black community are making these statements, but love to say the N-word in every song that they rap. I feel like they need to hold themselves accountable. They need to hold their peers accountable. They need to speak up because, yes, you don't have to be a part of a protest and a movement, But if you see something in your everyday life that you're doing and your peer is doing, hold yourself accountable. Reflect on the situations in the past that you might have not done so well and change that. Don't respect Black people. That's all it honestly is. Just respect another human being. Once you get past that point, then you made a change in your life and you can make a change in another person's life. Because if we get a lot more people to respect the Black community, then we won't have these problems.
I think what's important to understand is like a lot of people are waking up to this right now. Like, and it's becoming sort of like a cute, like popular thing on social media that people are just posting a Black screen and saying Black Lives Matter and then going on with their lives. But I think that a lot of people just need to, first of all, educate themselves, as everyone else has said, but don't depend on your Black friend to do that for you. Because I've gotten a lot of people reaching out to me and asking me, oh, what have you gone through and how can I listen to that? Like, it's kind of tone deaf to do that and depend on us to have you learn about our experience. I think there's so many resources, so many books, so many things you can look at, and it's important that you really listen and sit there and go through it and feel uncomfortable. Like, don't just go to your Black friend and apologize, or you have to go through that work in order to make change in your own mind and in your own life, and then of course in your families. Like, have those conversations, like be anti-racist, because we should not be going through this for this long and continue to have to go through this. And of course, with after education, like there's lots of actionable things you can do. You can follow with the Black Lives Matter Phoenix. They have lots of resources, lots of petitions to sign. There's lots of movements on social media. And then, of course, the BAC on Instagram is always posting really important information and about protests and petitions, that sort of thing. But yeah, this is not just a new thing. It's not a cute performative activism. Like, actually, like, make change in life, in your own mind. And then, of course, like in your communities, there's lots of different ways you can do that as well.
I think one of the biggest things that Black people can do, not just at ASU, but across the country, is just acknowledging their privilege and acknowledging why privilege is a thing or why racism is still a thing. I think that's the biggest thing, because once we do that and they start to have conversations about the privilege that they do receive and the fact that there is racism, and start having those tough conversations about race, they shouldn't be tough conversations. However, for a lot of people, they are. Having those conversations and challenging their families or relatives when they say questionable things about another race or Black people, or saying the N-word or whatever it might be, checking them and having that conversation and making sure that it doesn't happen again. I think that's the biggest thing that we can do to help make the situation better long term, if that makes sense.
I would just encourage my non-Black folks to really understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint by any means, and that when your timeline starts to die down and you stop seeing protests happening and you stop seeing your friends engaging in Black Lives Matter posts, you have to understand that the Black Lives Matter movement is still very real, and the struggle that Black folks go through is still very real. So I would encourage, I saw a visual on Twitter the other day that kind of blew my mind, because my feet are sore, like I'm exhausted, but the Montgomery bus boycotts were over 380 days. Whew, I don't know how they did that in the South, because I'm in Chicago and I'm like exhausted, but it really put things in perspective of this really is not something that's going to happen in a day. And it's important that after the smoke clears, the tear gas clears from our streets, the curfews are lifted, and people stop marching, we're engaging in these anti-racist conversations with our friends, families, and loved ones, and that we're engaging in this curriculum. We're always learning, and we're always keeping a close eye on our political leaders to making sure that they're also engaging in anti-racist policies, and that I know this is so tired and people are tired of hearing this, but voting really is important. And I'm not talking about the presidential election, because yes, that's important as well. But a lot of Senate seats are up this election. A lot of local elections are really important. I know in my community right now at home, I'm working with my local politicians to ensure change. And it really does start in like our own smaller communities. So I would just encourage you to, yes, focus on those Senate seats and focus on the presidential seat, but also focus on your own communities, because I think that that's where real change is enacted.
Yeah, just real quick, 110% agree with what everyone said. Divine took the words literally right out of my mouth. You can't do anything else. At the very least, you can hold your own self accountable, because yes, we want to say that we can change other people's hearts and minds. We would love to really do that, believe that, feel it, and all of that. But, we had to be real with ourselves. And there, as much as we want people to really feel our pain and know what we're going through and say that they are going to stand here and fight with us, some people are going to choose to remain ignorant and choose to do what they want to do at the end of the day. So yeah, just at least holding yourself accountable. And also, I just thought about this right now because I saw it on Twitter. When as like a non-Black student, just being not, when you say that you're for the community, being like not just being for part of our community, because our community is so big. I've just been seeing so much talk about, if you say you're for the community, because oh yeah, Black man and Black woman. But there are so many people that fall into the LGBTQ plus trans community, and it is important to acknowledge those people and their struggles as well, not just ones from like a cisgender person. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there, acknowledging everyone's struggles in our community.
And that's for Black folks too.
Period.
Any last words for the ASU community, or for anyone that's listening to this?
I do want to say one thing to the ASU community. It is not our coalitions, our member orgs, or us Black students. It's not our place, or it should not be our duty to educate others on our struggles. That's something that I want to say, because a lot of people have been reaching out to the BAC, just for guidance, and it's simple things that you can Google, or those simple things that you can pick up a book and read about. So racism didn't start yesterday. It didn't start a week ago. It started 400 years ago. We came over here in slave ships. So racism was here from the start. So I just feel as if people need to educate themselves and not depend on us or their Black friends to do it for them.
One thing I would say is just to not be afraid of change, because I feel like when things change, when we're so accustomed to things being a certain way, it can be scary at times, for people in our community and people not in our community. So just to not be afraid of the change that's happening, and just to educate yourself and just know that, things are going to work out the way they're supposed to work out. Might not go as fast as we would like, but to hold the vision and trust the process.
ASU has a big thing about inclusion, and I feel like my biggest fear with ASU is to take away from the movement by pushing the inclusion. Like, we include everyone. This time in our lives, this movement is not about whose struggle is worse. We are all here. We all experience the struggle. It's all about supporting each other. So I would love for ASU to stop worrying about inclusion. Yes, we all love each other, hopefully. We should all show support for each other. But this is a time where one community is feeling a lot of injustice. And this is a perfect time for ASU to show that they are inclusive by supporting a community that lacks social norms and treatment and all the stuff that maybe other communities don't have to experience. One community is experiencing it, and this is the time for everyone else to uplift them so we can all be included. The Black community is just trying to get to the starting line before the race even starts, because we are all comparing our struggles with different communities, and everyone's trying to compare their struggle, which struggle is worse. And I feel like that is taken away from the purpose of this community, this community. I said this movement, the protest. I feel like the ASU community should start trying to uplift the Black community instead of trying to compare the problems of other people with our problems, because that is something that you can't compare. Everybody experiences different things from different backgrounds, but I feel like instead of focusing on the different problems among everybody else, we should be trying to help each other. And this is the time where other communities should be helping the Black community, the Black Lives Matter movement. Now they don't have to protest. So I feel like they should be trying to support us and show that they are inclusive by showing that they are behind the Black community at ASU.
One thing I have to add is to the students at ASU is just ask yourself what you're comfortable with. Like, are you comfortable with how America is right now? With lives being lost, with racism? Ask yourself that. And then, I don't know, do something about it. You got to make yourself uncomfortable with what's happening. Because if you're not uncomfortable with what's happening right now, you need to reassess your mindset. You need to educate yourself. You need to open Instagram, open Twitter, see it. And then for my Black students at ASU, I just want to say, like, this is a really tough time for us right now, seeing videos of us being murdered. So just take care of yourself, check in with your mental health, all that. And I don't know, I've had to take a break from social media because just watching all those videos, it's very, very tough. And I can't imagine what other students are going through as well. It's really hard. So just take care of yourself and take a break if you need to. You don't always need to be on there being an activist. It's important to take care of yourself as a person in order to be able to fight in the future. So
the only thing I would really say to ASU and also other institutions is to really self-reflect on what type of systems of racism and oppression that you are upholding, especially as a predominantly white institution. I think that this would be a really good time for the administrators and the professors to take some time to really reflect on how they have perpetuated racism, whether that be in their lectures, their classrooms, their board meetings, I don't know, even their emails to students. I think that so often the burden of racism on campus falls on Black students, as I've mentioned before. And that's really a problem, and it's really an issue for Black students' mental health, especially. It's an issue just all the time when you're a Black student on campus, but then when situations of racism and things like that become nationalized, I don't think people really understand that that's a burden that all Black people in America really have to bear. When one person in our community dies, it feels like someone in your family dies because it very well could have been someone in your family. So the advice I would give ASU is to, whether it be diversity training or like some type of getaway with their staff, to really do some deep reflection on the ways in which Arizona State University has encouraged, perpetuated, or even benefited from systems of oppression within the United States.
All right. I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for coming on. It was great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.